Hello, I'm Phyllis Wilson with my daily moments to talk to you about healing our world. With the last few days of events, besides the murder of George Floyd, there has been so many other events that has taken place, not just about racism, but about sexism, about silent segregation that has been taking place. And to be honest with you, segregation has never stopped. The forms in which it has been displayed has changed. Instead of it blatantly being signs that says black only, whites whites only, instead of those types of forms and signs to tell us about the segregation has still continued. We still have quite a few way and long ways to go, not just to fix our world, but to repair our world. Because just simply saying to fix it would mean put a band-aid on the problem. And for so long, it has been fixed, but that fix at some point breaks. So a repairing of something takes place for a longer length of time. And we need to strongly consider the best ways to repair our world, our universe, our environment. It could start with something simple as admitting that it exists. And somehow, in some forms, people are still walking around blinded of the fact that it does exist. And it's being displayed on a regular basis, not just on restaurant receipts where it says blacks, and then it's written on the receipt or printed on the receipt, or a segregation in a different form where we're being discriminated against. Our government, in some ways, in some shapes and forms, discriminate against us because they see a need that the citizens of this world and of this country have a need for, and yet they hesitate and become stagnant and try to put the blinders on as if they don't see that people are suffering in all shape, form, and fashions, and not just financially and not just physically, but there's a suffering in our world, in our universe. Our country needs to be repaired, not fixed. Homelessness is another issue that is happening to our world and in our environment, and yet a blind eye is being paid attention to where even in some states, including here in Illinois, they've tried to evict the homeless from the public property that they are squatting on to try to make shelter and home for themselves because we refuse or have not even considered how to not allow them to continue to be homeless. Um, all the African American women just in the state of Illinois alone, let alone across this country, who have come up missing. And in some instances are found dead with their organs gone, or they have been sold into sex traffic rings, and sex trafficking becoming a major issue in our world. So you see, we don't need just to be fixed, we need to be repaired. We need to have some things in place, some real things, not people worried about lining their pockets with money or the bottom line of benefiting from someone else's pain, suffering. And we need to exercise more compassion and understanding and meaning to really dig deep into seeing what the problems are and not fixing them, but repairing them. So as a U.S. citizen and as a concerned individual, as an African American woman who is tired of relentlessly worrying about when the male figure leaves the home, the black male figure leaves their home, that they may never return, or when they do return, they have a different story to tell because their very lives in essence have been threatened, or they have been criticized in some shape or form to be made to think that they are not worthy or good enough to be African American men. Well, here's a news flash for you. Not only are they able and willing to be and should be considered kings, but they truly are and need and deserve to be treated that way. The very ones that have taken an oath and vow of to protect and serve us are not protecting or serving us. They're protecting themselves and all the other of their counterparts that are not African Americans or any other nationality, but just Caucasian individuals in the world. They're protecting them and serving them while they neglect to see that the very reason they even have a job is because of the very ones that they are putting their knees on their necks. the very ones that they are slamming into cars, the very ones that they're pointing guns in their faces. They have not realized that they have their jobs and that they have the opportunity, even if they are African American on the police force, they have the opportunity to be on that force because we stood up as citizens and we stood up for rights and justices, and we stood up for them to have the right to even be appointed or even to apply to the police academy. Yet the lack of training, the lack of compassion, the lack of being prepared to handle the job for which they hold and the paycheck in which they collect has allowed the rest of us to suffer and to have to endure some injustices and injustices that we have experienced and exercised. Well, I say to you, it's time for our world to be repaired, not fixed, because the fix has still been broken. The Band-Aid has been snatched off, and before it gets fixed again, there's going to be some really dire consequences, and you're starting to see them with the protests that are taking places in various states because people are getting more overwhelmingly tired and frustrated. Besides being confined and quarantined into their homes due to COVID-19, which could have been prevented if someone in higher authority had have listened and taken action sooner rather than later. It is now at the time, and it's the awakening of a new day, a new dawn, and a new normal, people, which I, in other videos, have said and have been saying for a while. We are now into a new norm. What we thought was normal before will never exist again. But there is a new norm that's about to take place. There is more of a separation instead of in a division more than there is coming together. And our world not needs to be fixed. It needs to be repaired.